Hello, welcome to this quick video where I'm going to show you how to use OliveTin to run a command when we create a new file in a directory. OliveTin is free and open source software, and if you've not heard of it before, it's mostly run in containers on Linux, but it does support running on native services on Linux, as well as Windows and Mac OS as well. You can learn more about OliveTin going to olivetin.app in your web browser, or follow along here with the documentation at docs.olivetin.app. So like I say, OliveTin runs commands, and it can run those in a whole bunch of different triggers. So it can run them, for example, on a webhook or on a startup. It could also run on a schedule and a few different things. But in the case of this video, we want to run a command when we create a file in the directory. So looking at the config syntax for OliveTin, it's very simple and very straightforward. Uses this YAML syntax. So we can set this up here in our little demo environment. So let me just minimize the documentation, and you see here on the right hand side of my screen I've got two terminal windows open, and they're open to a blank Linux virtual machine. There's nothing running there apart from Docker and one or two other things, yeah, otherwise it's a blank machine, right? So OliveTin is not running at the moment. There you go. We've not pulled down the image or anything like that. So let's first get OliveTin installed and up and running. So we can go to the installation guide, and for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to use Docker Compose. This is a quick and easy way to get OliveTin up and running. So just paste the contents in there, and let's just walk through this file. So there's a container, and the name's obviously set to OliveTin. It's going to pull the image from Docker Hub, and here it's asking for the volumes. So OliveTin uses a /config directory as a default volume. If you don't have to specify this yourself, but if you don't, then OliveTin will create your config in /var lib docker volumes or something like that, and that's perhaps not the most useful place for it. So you can put this wherever you like, but I like to put my config in /docker/OliveTin. We're going to create a second volume as well, and so for /docker/downloads. As for the purposes of this demo, we're going to run a shell command, let's say, when we create a file in the downloads directory. So we need OliveTin, the container, to be able to see that directory. Let's mount that to /downloads. Okay, let's save and quit that file, and we can then now have to create those directories we just talked about. So /docker/OliveTin and /docker/downloads. Lastly, before we bring that container up, we're going to need a config. So what I'll do is I'll go here to the documentation and go to file created, and let's copy this config example into a new config file for OliveTin. Okay, great. Just delete the empty lines there, we don't need those. So let's just look through this example. So this is one single command called print the names of new files, and as you'd expect, the shell command here is to echo file name that exists when we create a new file. I can see that here that OliveTin will also populate a few arguments for you, such as the file directory or the file extension, but we don't need to use those just yet. So let's just space those out, but we're not going to use them just yet. Lastly, it's going to ask us for what directory we want to watch, and if we go back to our Docker Compose file, for example, then you'll see that we created that downloads directory in /downloads, so we'll have to make this directory match as well. Okay, great. That's the config there for OliveTin on the right, and the Docker Compose file on the left. So let's save and quit both of those, and we can start bringing up the container. So just like any container, Docker Compose will now go and download that container image from Docker Hub. The first time you do this, it will probably take a minute or two, but obviously if you go and create this container again, then the image will already be cached and downloaded on your server. So you can see here that OliveTin has started up successfully. So OliveTin initializing, and then initialization complete, blah blah blah. You can see here it's running on port 1337 here down here. That's the main web server for OliveTin. And there's a couple of warning messages about files that couldn't be created, but those are just warnings and we don't need to worry about those. So let's minimize that terminal window and go refresh our browser. Fantastic, that's the OliveTin web interface up and running. And if we click on our first action, it's going to prompt me for the arguments. Now, I could fill those out manually, but that's not really the point of this action, right? We want those to be filled out automatically when we create a new file in their directory. So we'll cancel that for now, and we'll go to our downloads directory. So /docker/downloads. So when we create a file, we'd expect the action to run, and so let's try that now. We'll use the touch command, so that creates a new file, so file1.txt. It's a Linux command, obviously, to create a new file. So we run that, then happy days. OliveTin picked up that file called file1.txt. You can see here the web interface also flashed at the same time, which means we ran the command successfully. If we go down to our logs here, you can see here that we are now looking at the output, and yep, we ran the command and it was echo file name, so file1.txt is the output. So hopefully you can see from this example it's very quick and very easy to set up commands as like triggers whenever you create a new file in a directory. And of course you could do something more, you could create files in lots of different ways, so test2.txt for example. See, look, I got a little typo there. There wouldn't be a real demo if I didn't have a little typo, so create that one there. Go look at our logs again. So there we go, there's test2.txt, and other ones in there as well. So hopefully you found this video useful. Jump on the Discord server if you want some help setting that up. Hopefully you find this could be useful for a few different things, and you can find the documentation at docs.olivetin.app. You can also find it often on GitHub, and it's available as an installation guide here to how to set up on Fedora or Arch Linux or Docker Compose or however you like. Again, thanks very much for watching the video. I hope to hear how you're using OliveTin. Thanks very much. Bye bye.